We spoke to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez about a year ago, I think it was. I can't really remember, but I think it was probably about a year ago. And she had at that point was talking about reforms that that you were looking for. By you, I mean I think the members of the squad, the fellow progressives within the Progressive Caucus, to make the Progressive Caucus actually progressive, and both in terms of like trying to define what that meant and not allowing the Progressive Caucus to simply be like a good housekeeping stamp of approval, but it actually required some components to it, but also how to wield power. In the first part, what is there any? I mean, when someone now signs up to be a member of the Progressive Caucus, is there any talk within the caucus of saying you can sign up to be, you don't just get to choose the title. There are certain litmus tests that we have in terms of positions. Is that in the works in some way? I mean, I think it's impressive that we had 50, to the extent that we knew the exact number. By we, I mean us, not you. To the extent that we knew the real number, or at least that we knew the number that was being communicated, it was, over 50, but there's over 100 members of the Progressive Caucus. So what of those other 50 or 40 or 30, whatever that number is there a desire within the caucus to make the caucus maybe not as big, but as more cohesive?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we came into Congress, a lot of us were proposing, different kind of reforms that should be made. There were some that were proposing what you're suggesting, of making it smaller and more cohesive. And some of us, including myself, thought, we could keep whatever number that's out there with actual guidelines like other ideological caucuses have of what makes you a member of the Progressive Caucus. How often do you need to vote with us in order for you to maintain your status within the caucus? What policies do you have to agree to support in order for you to have membership? And whether you are endorsed or not, when you come into Congress, can you join without going through a screening and an approval process? And so the changes that we've made are along the lines of what I just said. There is a certain percentage of votes that you have to take with us. Only if we have whipped on that vote, right? Like a majority of the votes that we take are not things that the Progressive Caucus or any ideological caucus is whipping on, or even just the whole caucus is whipping on. They're just given majority of the stuff that we take, majority of the votes that we take. But for the ones that are of value, if we whip on a vote and we decide that we're voting a yes or a no, there is a certain percentage that you have to be voting with us in order to have a good standing with the caucus. There's obviously, all of these bills that you have to agree to support in order to be part of the caucus. There's a certain number of meetings that you have to come to every month. There is a strategy that you have to support that's put forth by the caucus. And it drastically has shifted the cohesive ways in which we work together. I was the whip my first term last cycle, and it was a really painful process, I'll tell you. I really was confused about why some people were progressive or were in the Progressive Caucus, and how we could justify their membership, and the lack of accountability was bizarre to me. I used to be the assistant minority leader when I was in the Minnesota House, and there was some accountability, and there's just no accountability. And so once we've made the changes, obviously there is a higher turnout to the meeting, so everybody, can be part of the debate. We can make decisions together. There's a faster response to my whip efforts. There is a cohesive way in which, our deputy Katie Porter, our chairwoman Chayapal, and myself work together in our teams. So it's a very much more effective caucus. My whip deputies and their staff are excellent. We just do things differently, and it shows.
Just wrapping up here.
And I will say the number was more than 50.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm going to assume you're not going to tell me what that percentage is either. But all right. So with that said, just lastly, what has been the reaction in the larger Democratic caucus to this shift? Because this feels like the first indication, it's really the first opportunity probably too, in many respects, for this sort of revamped progressive caucus to emerge. What do you anticipate will be the implications of this, and what was the reaction to this? Because we should just say that it's ironic that there's that many members of the Progressive Caucus who wanted that moniker, but yet this is a caucus that has been, and the caucus has allowed it, completely ignored in the context of legislating. This, in my recollection, that goes back a couple of decades, is the first time that I've seen like this type of situation where the people who wanted that, wanted to break the deal about the bipartisan bill lost, or at least have lost up to this point. What was the reactions, and what do you think the implications are going to be going forward?
I think the reaction has been quite positive, because in many ways, outside of this cohesive nipple strategy that the Progressive Caucus has carried out, part of our strategy has also been to do outreach to other ideological caucuses about the bills that we support, and why we think that it would be beneficial for them to be on board with us. And so, with the help of people like Katie Porter, who's a frontliner, but a progressive, and a bold progressive, because she understands how to communicate some of these policies to her district, she's able to maintain her progressive status, and still represent this district that is a swing district. And we've been able to gain the support of so many others that are not part of our caucus to be with us in the strategy that we have developed in regards to the reconciliation piece. And she's also encouraged other frontline members that are part of the Progressive Caucus to be in the forefront of this advocacy work that we do within the larger caucus. We've also had, frank conversations with different chairs and others who are in leadership who, sometimes used to have tensions around their leadership positions, and being, in support of the Progressive Caucus's policies and point of views when it came to negotiating. And so now we sort of have our chairs that are part of the Progressive Caucus, people who are in leadership, fighting for these progressive values in these rooms. And so it's not just the chairwoman or the deputy or me and others that are part of the executive team.